All right, here we go. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Blue Chip Academy podcast. I'm Ryan Mundy, and also we got Justin King on the mic, two former blue chip athletes breaking down game for you so that you could be a better person, better player, and live a better life, man. How you feeling today, Justin?
Feeling great, man. Blessed Monday. Had a rock hit my car over the weekend, and getting that fixed.
In the
But
windshield?
that thing, windshield, man, hit the windshield just out of
Man,
nowhere. I
that's
felt
the
like somebody
worst.
threw a rock. I was like,
Oh, through a rock.
I just felt like it, but it was like almost like a
Oh,
golf
okay.
size. Like it wasn't like a little
Oh,
nick. It was like a golf ball. I was like, yo, what hit this? I was behind an 18-wheeler. But no, blessings. Everything's good. We're here this good Monday. Good NBA kickoff. Dive into some stuff. Talk about parent archetypes and all that good stuff, man. I think we got some good things to dive into. Some nuanced things to
yeah.
touch on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the world for sure. The weekend was pretty busy on my end, man. Beyonce was in town, and so that had the city all up in a frenzy. And my youngest daughter and my wife, they went to the concert yesterday, so that was cool. But weather-wise, man, or actually, quick backstep. Yes, I feel you on the rock in the windshield. I actually had that happen to me a few weeks ago, and still haven't got my windshield fixed. I'm just kind of riding around with a small crack, but eventually I got to get that done. But the weather here in Chicago, man, has been kind of crazy. It was 85 on Friday, and then that morphed into like a dust storm, which was kind of crazy. I never, how you get those like alerts on your phone around like weather alerts. It started ringing. And it was like dust storm alert. I was like, well, never had that before. But yeah, man, the weekend was cool. There was a lot happening. Some great NBA playoff games. And now we got the conference finals set, man. So right now it's Knicks versus Pacers and OKC versus the Wolves, man. And I like it because they all have young energy about them. Like all these teams have very, very young energy, and it should be an exciting series, man. But what's your thoughts on it?
I mean, I'm excited. Again, when major markets are in the finals, I think is pretty cool. I like the Knicks being there. Like everybody showing the crazy fans. And I like Ant. I like Ant Man. I think
Yeah.
he's box office in terms of just seeing a
Can he be
next
the
guard of
face?
guys.
Is he ready for the face of the NBA? Is he ready for that?
I mean, I guess is the NBA ready for him to be the face? Is the question.
That's a
Like,
better
I
question.
mean,
Right. Is the
that's probably
NBA
a
ready
better
for him?
question.
Yeah, that's real. That is
Because I
very
think he's
real.
a little different than even like a John Morant. You know what I mean? John Morant was a little
Yeah.
rough around the edges. His high time, they can kind of do what they need to do. Like Ant's gonna talk, he's gonna talk that thing a certain type of way. He told Obama stand down. Like, I don't know if the NBA if the NBA is ready for that, I mean crown him. But I think he's the type of sports asset that people get around because he's polarizing. You either love him or
Yeah.
hate him on the field, off the court, whatever the case may be. He's polarizing, but he's a baller at the end of the day, and that's what people are paying to see, and that's what he gets
Yeah.
paid to do.
Big time. And then also with Adidas too, man. They're doing a great job of marketing with that dude. So we'll see where it goes, man. I like him a lot, but that is a great way to kind of flip that question. Is the NBA ready for him? We'll see. We will definitely see. But basketball was definitely popping this weekend too, man. And also the WNBA kicked off. And so round two of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And again, being in Chicago, that's always the talk of the town. And they got a little chippy over the weekend, man. Were you able to check out that game?
I saw the aftermath. I saw the aftermath and comments.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Acho said some wild stuff about I think Reese hating
He has some
Clark
interesting
because she got the
takes.
foul. Huh?
He has
Yeah,
some
he's
interesting takes.
yeah, it's very interesting take. It just it seems pandering,
Interesting.
but yeah, it's
Yeah.
stupid. Because at the end of the day, like they're competitors, and if you like track them back all the way to high school when Angel Reese was in Maryland, like they've always been talking trash or going after each other. But I think that's a beautiful part of the game. But it's interesting when we just got more fan involvement, Twitter, and just there to hear fans, unadulterated opinions about players versus another player. I think that's what becomes interesting because before you just say like, hey, everybody takes criticism, everybody takes praise or whatever the case may be, but it's always interesting between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark because the juxtaposition of how they carry themselves, how they operate, and then the fans that support one or the other, it becomes like an old Larry Bird, Magic Johnson type thing, and I don't know, it's interesting
Yeah.
because like there's truth to a lot of it, but at the same time, like this is a sport, and that's a lot of times it gets overblown, but it was interesting hearing the
People
stuff
need
about
stuff to
it.
talk about, man. You know how it goes. People need stuff to talk about. Speaking of stuff to talk about, man, like this, I don't even know how to call it. I guess like President Trump and getting involved in college athletics and the NIL. That this conversation in this situation seems to be picking up steam, and particularly now that Nick Saban and a few other billionaires and like folks with influence and capital are really starting to come to the table and rally around whatever's happening. What exactly we don't know, I don't think, but there seems to be something brewing and something that is on the horizon. So I'm just curious, man. Like, one, what is your take on that, and then like double clicking into it, like what does it say about the current state of college athletics where like the president has to get involved to quote fix it? Because I'm assuming that's like the ethos around like him getting involved. Like there seems to be an identified problem or an issue, and it's like, okay, well, here comes the president, here comes the government to quote fix it. And that I think is really interesting because in a lot of ways, shapes and forms, the government really doesn't fix anything. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Mhm. No.
But just curious on your take, man. Like what this conversation is, and this storyline is definitely picking up a lot of headlines and steam over the last few days and weeks, man. But what are your thoughts on it?
I think this is the sum of a lack of leadership and an opportunist that sees an opportunity to take advantage
Mm,
of poor leadership, right? And I think it's very easy to step in and just make executive orders because the NCAA is a mess. I mean, I think it's not aligned on what they say they are from an amateurism model. And I think Donald Trump, he got into office from kind of pulling the veils back on everybody, right? Hey, this is how do fundraising. This is why you should vote for me. And so, like, even in this stage, I think the the general public's temperature about college sports is that it's lost and it needs a savior. It needs structure. And then who else
hmm,
better than to jump in that to get fanfare when we talk about an institution of college sports that is valued at the same level as religion in this country, right? And a lot of
hmm.
like outcome metrics based on it. And so when you see that, I think it's a power play move, but I don't know if he has any, I mean, credible jurisdiction to do anything that will make the
Nah.
situation better. I think in NIL, everybody's going to come down on whether it's the handlers or the agents and things of that nature because it's a low hanging fruit, and these guys need help and infrastructure to protect the players. But at the end of the day, the decision makers need quality control, right? Like they're kind of
Hmm.
running free without having that background of running a monetizable or profit generating enterprise. Like these guys are all leaders of nonprofit institutions. So like the whole idea of, hey, we need to generate revenue from a product that we put on the field is a different operation than going out and asking boosters for money. You know what I mean? So this is a
Hmm.
sum of a lack of leadership and an opportunity opportunist to take a chance at an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to put it, man. It shows up as an opportunity for the opportunist, and double clicking into that, it's like I look at it as, and I think you had mentioned this, like a power play, right? Like I think uh, the power quote is really starting to shift towards players and athletes, and they're starting to realize their power. And before that power grows too quickly, provisions, constraints, control starts to show up. And I think this is exactly what that is. And it really is, because like when I read up on this, it seemed like Trump was aligning himself with like the coaches, the establishment, if you will,
Mhm.
and like, oh wait, the players have too much power. And if you think back, to like even Colin Kaepernick and some of his comments around kneeling, etc., and then the response from the owners during that time, like it's kind of giving me those vibes, those very same vibes around like, look, let's get all the folks who have the control and the authority and the power. Let's get on the same page before the players, to quote, and the assets and the folks who are actually creating value in the ecosystem before they realize and wake up too much, and start to tap into their own personal power and their own agency before things get out of control. Like, let's step in here. That's really what it kind of feels like to me. And so I'm interested to see how it's going to unfold. particularly like with the NCAA, which is an institution long-standing of which, like, like what is the true value in which they're delivering, and how are they actually empowering and supporting players, particularly in this dynamic climate. So it's a fascinating story, man, and it actually sounds like something we should dive into sooner than later, because this thing is happening fast, and it's going to directly affect the folks in which we're looking to help and support, man. So it'll be interesting to say the least. But man, power always brings those out, brings folks out of the woodwork to make sure that things kind of stay the same, or like folks don't realize who they are at their core.
And that's exactly what's happening. And I mean, I've been screaming cautionary tales on just the moves, even from players and families going through the process while they've had this little suspended freedom of transfer portal, holding teams hostage and things of that nature. And I'm like, bruh, like these guys do financial forecasts and tracking human interactions or like customer profiles all the time. You guys are a part of the customer base right now. We're learning a lot about you guys. So when you're transferring schools, you got this lawyer suing this university, you got players holding the coach up. I'm all for player empowerment, but I understood the chess play that, as you guys do this, like they do have the big joker in this whole situation, in the sense of like they align with the president, with the boosters, with like their alignment is much better than the athletes and the players and everybody that's just kind of screaming from the sidelines going on. So like that's kind of, so I'm not surprised that someone like Trump would say that, but you kind of need that in order to run a football league, which is, that's why I say it's like, it's the sum of a lack of leadership. When you get to the NFL, bad, right, wrong, or different, you know who the leaders are. When Roger Goodell says this is this, when Jerry Jones says this, we're going about what he said. Like the leadership is that, and no role with a decision, whether it's right or wrong. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we were seeing in college, and these guys not doing that, and is trying to operate in this bastardized model where it's like, all right, we're trying to make money and have infrastructure, but keep up the veil of, hey, this is still a developmental league and it's backed by the education system. Well, that's not, it is, but that's not really the case. So I think even with him doing that, it's like, it's actually necessary though. That's what's kind of tricky in this whole thing, is like Donald Trump is overstepping his bounds, kind of getting into it. But at the same time, there aren't necessarily leaders that know what to do in college sports right now. And that's a major reason why it's in, I would say, the wild, wild west. But there's a lot of opportunities if you go along with the, right partners.
Leaders got to lead. And if leaders don't lead, then somebody's going to step in the gap. And I think that is the testament and the true case of where we are right now, man. So we'll definitely have to find the right time and space to dive deeper into this subject. But let's move on to today's topic, and that's really around the involvement of parents in sports. We've both been very blessed to have active and influential parents that have really shaped and molded not only our athletic careers, but ultimately who we are as people. And so when we brought it up on last week's episode, I was like, we should actually do that this week. And so here we are. And I think it's always a timely discussion, particularly around like the role and involvement of parents, because they're so instrumental and impactful, and again, the development of athletes and their own children. But I think it's also timely for me because actually, again, on Friday, I was out at dinner and I saw a buddy, and he invited me over to his table to speak to a Notre Dame recruit who is an incoming freshman. And, it was like, hey, you're a former athlete. You've been there, done that. Come talk to this guy, give him some words of wisdom, like give him a pep talk, etc. Those types of vibes. And I was like, all right, cool. So I went over to the table, and it was him, it was his father, and a few other folks. And so we had a nice conversation, but what was most top of mind for me I asked a general question to both him and the athlete and his father. And I asked, I said, how are you dealing with this NIL stuff? Like, what is like your take on it? How was your experience, et cetera? And he said something really, really interesting. that kind of struck me. He said, I hired an agent, and that's a whole nother type of conversation. But what stood out to me in his response was he said, I did that because I just wanted to be dad. I just wanted to parent my son, and I wanted to be and I didn't want to have to worry about the complications of the deal, the money, and all this other types of stuff. And honestly, things that I don't have any experience or know how I'm doing. I just wanted to be dad, and that really kind of struck a chord with me, because at the end of the day, that is the primary responsibility of a parent, is to be the parent, and all these other dynamics and factors don't get in the way, but they kind of cloud judgment. And particularly now that money is starting to be involved, feelings, thoughts, ambitions, missed opportunities, all these things really start to show up when we talk about like the decision makers and those who are supporting the child, primarily starting with the parent. And so I thought that was a very timely discussion, because I was like, oh, we're going to talk about this on Monday. And so here we are, man, getting ready to dive into like these different parent types of archetypes. But I just thought that was really interesting. So like with your dad, right? Like you were coached by your dad, and he was there with you all the time. How was that experience?
Well, I mean, before I even touch on that, I would like to, when I hear parents say that, like, I just want to be the parent, I always like to reframe or ask a follow-up question is like, what does mean being like, what does just being the parent mean to you?
Yeah.
Because I think that's where it gets a little tricky when we look at parent involvement, because then my next question would be like, well, do you think the parent's job is to prepare the kid? Right? Because like we get into a space where I think the benefactors or the predictors of success in the sport, whether it's an involved parent, is because like the kid is prepared. And then sometimes when we see the over, involved parent and the kid fails, it's like they were prepared but not in the right areas. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Still good intention, right?
Yeah.
Still good intention, but not the tactical knowledge to be able to connect the dots. And that's where I think this thing is tricky. I only come across a very small percentage of parents that are just kind of, where I think leaving like, man, this dude's a piece of shit. Like only a very few. But like most of the time I have empathy because they're trying in one way or another to fix it. So when I say that, what does it mean to be a parent is to prepare. Because when you ask me, like, what was my experience like with my pops being my coach, I think it's a very nuanced and different approach, because like, that's how I felt the connection. Or just what people don't know the background between my pops, Coach Terry Smith at Penn State, but like I met him at a department store. You know what I mean? So like I'm going, Christmas shopping, I'm about 5-6 years old, meet this guy, my mom starts dating him, and he starts giving me all this football knowledge. So like from this standpoint, like that was, me and my dad, we have a good relationship. So into the parent thing, there was a void that I was looking for. And so this man comes into my life and just gives me all the tools to kind of build me up, whether it's like I'm an insecure kid where I'm just with my mom trying to figure it out. And he gives me these tools of football of like building up, whether it's your self-esteem, your work ethic, accountability, discipline, vision, goal setting, all these different type of things, but it was always set from football. And so I say that to say is that like he would have been like a helicopter dad per se, but he also was my coach. So it was in that phase of like kind of rubbing the line of our dad and preparing me, but also being the coach and seeing through the performance. And I say that to say is like my experience was very unique because I never had that moment where I didn't want to listen. You know what I mean? Like I think I was most upset or hurt in my career. I don't know if I've ever said this, but like when I got to the league and I knew like Gateway was at his full throttle, and then I felt like I was by myself to an extent. Like I had all this support, he's helping me. I got that feedback loop. I know exactly what it's like a team, blah, blah, blah. All these different type of things that people typically get in the league. I had growing up all the way to a point. And then Gateway kind of blew up, and, he's helping guys get scholarships. He's doing the high school coaching and things like nature. It's like, well, damn, this is where I really need the support in the league, because you think we're letting them go off into this place where we built them up to be, but there's like, they still need support when they get there. So like, I have a different perspective about helicopter parents. Like I I like them. I want to help them. I want to inform them to make sure that they
Yeah.
are helping their kids, because what I realize is that everybody that makes it to the back end of professional sports, any sport, the family nucleus is strong. And I'm not saying
Right.
making it out with money, right? I'm talking about making it out healthy and like okay. You know what I mean? That's a common.
That's a big difference, man. That's a huge
It's
difference.
a huge difference in how it's done, and a lot of times it's just misinterpreted. You know what I mean? With a lack of knowledge and, you know, over preparedness for your kids. So so my experience is a very different. Again, I was my stepdad, and then so I built that trust, but also that trust as a coach. And then I looked at coaches differently as I went through the business. I always trusted my pops more than the coach. So it's like there was never a chance where I was like, man, he's crazy. He's not listening. It's like I hung on to every word that he said. He said it, I did it. Right? He challenged me. I answered the call. When that was like, he still did when I was in the league. But when you get to the league, you know, I think parents like him as a coach, they want to let go.
Yep.
We did our due. Let's now do your thing.
Yeah.
You made it. And what I realized from working in the sport, transitioning out, how much support I still actually needed more support when I made it to the league and when I was transitioning out, because we think that it's the resources that got us there, but really it's the love and support and like that feeling of having a team around you that made me feel successful my whole life. And then not that they weren't there. It's just the dynamics change when you get into the professional ranks. So again, it's a lot of reasons why probably my perspective on the process and how it goes is a little bit different. But yeah, that was my experience. I mean, being a coach's kid and then transitioning out to work in the football, like you need advice, you need guidance, you need to lean on people, you need to like have conversations about like, hey, I'm taking a $70,000 pay cut to work back into football. Can I stay with you guys for 7 or 8 months? Like I still needed support, even financially, after I played in the league for 5 years and worked and did things like that. Like I'm talking about I made 6 figures working in corporate America. Like I didn't, so like, but I took a pay cut to work back into football, but I needed my parents' support to kind of make those connections, even working in football. So like the support of a parent in my brain never stops. It just shifts. And I try to even pick up the place like, all right, where my pops kind of was there, is that from that advisor, objective resource, sounding board. He's always been that, but like how deep do guys need that when they get to the league and when they get deeper into their career? Because I think rightfully so, some parents and coaches, like they want our parents like step off because like, hey, they made it and I want to give them their chance to do what they want to do. And it's funny we say that because it's a lot of former NFL players that are like that, because we understand the business and we never want to be that parent that we always saw growing up. You know what I mean? We don't want to be the LeVar Ball. We don't want to be embarrassing to our kid. We don't want to be that, but we want that result though. Like, we want the
I mean, there's result. A lot of proof in the pudding. There's, call it what you want. You could get mad at them. You could not like it, but hey, he helped his sons accomplish their dream, right? And a lot of people really can't say that.
Through preparation. Like, I think that's another thing that gets lost on these different like dads that they're talking about is like, all right, we talk about Earl Woods, but man, he's out there. The confidence was in the work. We think about the LeVar Ball. He understood that he had assets that were what they were. They're 6'5" point guard, and he put in the work and cultivated a path. And like he had a background. He played professional football. Like, so he had some understanding of the business. He's not just a complete lost guy, right? And then, you know, it's just very interesting because the same things that make the successful ones, I think, successful parents, I think people try to emulate that and they miss critical steps that have the most benefit to the player. You know what I mean? So as we talk into it, I mean, whenever you're ready, we can get into these archetypes because I think from dealing with athletes and parents,
let's dive into it.
So I mean,
let's dive into it. What's the first? You mentioned the helicopter parent. Is that your first archetype, or
the helicopter parent is another
one?
I think these are, so it's funny. I think the helicopter parent is the ideal parent. So like these are all somewhat helicopter parents. Cause again, I challenge the parents that say, I just want to be a parent and kind of get someone else involved. Because like when I get to the league office or things of that nature, that's what they want. So anything that the business wants, I don't want the parents to want the same thing the business wants.
Mm-hmm.
Because like now you're giving your kid away and now you're aligned with the owners and not your kid. So I don't like, that's not what I want. So I want you to be informed about what's going on. So I think the first one, from a standpoint, is like the living through them parent, right? Like that's somewhat of a helicopter prototype. That's the one that like they didn't make it, so they're trying to live out through their kid. The guy that hurt his knee in high school, was pretty good, fell out, and he's putting all this pressure on the kid. And he was just a good, major football player coming from a good place, right? Whether it's a hurt place of like, I need to get value for myself or whatever the case may be, he's trying to push his kid to represent something, whatever, right? Living through them parent. I think a lot of guys don't want to be that. The coach from the stands parent. This is the coach that tried to take the advantage. Like, look, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be over here, but like they're at the game and they can't sit still. They always got something to say. They're yelling at the coach. They know more because they watched ESPN. They heard Stephen A say something, but a lot of times undermines the actual coaching by injecting confusion and pressure, often blames team politics, favoritism for their child doesn't perform well, create tension between child and staff, stunning both trust and progress. They can't sit quietly during games, yells instructions, second guessing decisions. So like, that's a lot different, or less obnoxious than the living through them parent, right? He's obsessed with their kid fulfilling their own failed athletic dreams. And it's just, it comes.
You said that's less obnoxious. I would think that somebody who's yelling through the stands, like, yo, sit your ass down.
Well, that's just at the game though.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's just showing out when everybody's showing out. Like you're just yelling because you didn't put in the work behind. Like the living through them parent, they actually are closer to, the LeVar Balls. Like they look like that until you like kind of understand the background of it. Because when we look at, top players, man, whether it's like even like a Kobe Bryant, like his dad was a coach, right? We talk about Oliver. Andrew Luck, his dad was a former NFL player, worked in college. We can go through so many different scenarios, but the living through them parent is like a lifestyle. I think the coach from the stands parent is an ego thing, like a personal ego hurt. And then you got the investor parent, right? Treats you sports like a stock portfolio, only in it for a scholarship, wants performance to equal payday ASAP. Often seeks representation or branding too soon, creating entitlement or burnout, disconnects from human element, mental health, maturity, identity, development. That's the investor parent. That's the typical parent that says, well, I just want to be the parent. You know what I mean? And I think because it feels good because I want to invest. Hey, I'm going to get me an agent. You take care of it.
I'm doing whatever it takes. Yeah.
You whatever it takes. We'll pay for it. We'll make sure it's all right, but like not taking consideration of like, what does that mean for like that actual athlete development when you're that parent, right? Like, because you still have to understand what's going on to like watch that agent, to watch the financial advisor, to watch the coach. Like, how you going, like if the coach does some foul stuff, like how do you know when to file a grievance? How do you know when to, like, you just going to trust this agent that only gets money when you get money? Right. So that's where I think there's a gap that happens with the investor parent. And I think even what's so interesting about those three that I kind of came up with, there may be negatives. I think you need that for the predictors of success. Is the switch side or the flip side of those archetypes I'm gonna get into now. It's like number one is the supportive investor parent, right? Like,
so these are like positive like traits of the archetype.
Yes. Yeah. Under like the bad version of it, like I said before, pressure is like return of investment over growth. They're like, we need this money back. I'm putting you in 7-on-7, so you better be good and play that. So like sometimes that investor parent turns into that player in the stands because like they're spending money and they're just looking for an outcome, but not really invested. Like, no, your kid doesn't want the gift. They want to spend time with you. Like that's how you get the respect with them. So like that supportive investor parent understands the business and sports, but stays grounded in development, supports advisors, training, and NIL prep when appropriate, but doesn't rush the process, invest time, money, and energy strategically, asking, is this the right thing for my kid? This parent is an investor. They treat their kid, and it's like a little bit of a apprehension and fear. Like, I want to protect my kid going through this process, but I think I have something. So it's a positive thing. Sometimes it can rub up against some of the other ones, but that's a positive one. The second one is the empowered advocate. I guess it's inspired by like the coach from the parents the coach from the stands parent. The bad version would be loud and disruptive. The ideal is like involved, respectful, educated, but defers to the coaching, right? Like you hear a lot of times when coaches like Deion Sanders that got into the game, this is how they started. I mean, when I was a kid, my pops didn't coach football at the youth league until he started arguing with all my coaches growing up about, what's going on from the coach's standpoint, and like not feeling like I was getting the proper development. And hey, well, then we need to do this the right way. But he had a understanding. But when he was actually a parent, like he didn't involve himself too much into the coaching thing. And this is I'm gonna take a quick pause there because I would say there was one instance in my life where he did become the helicopter parent where he kind of attacked the coach one time when I was like in 7th or 8th grade. You know what I mean? So this is before I get to Gateway. I'm at Woodland Hills. And I can't say attacked. They got into a big argument after where it was a scene. Let's say a scene. And it was like the first time again, focused on development. He was never like that. He was always looking out for my well-being. Like, all right, if we're doing tackling drills and a coach is doing something, he might say something like, hey man, these kids are too young. That might be something for their neck. We got to the point where coach didn't give me the ball one time and he was yelling at the coach about not giving me the ball. And he said, like, how can you not give him the ball when he's like the best player in the state? He yelled that. And that was like the first time I heard like validation from him that I was good. Like from him. What that did to my confidence.
That's an important moment. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But like in that ideal, it was the parent yelling at the coach. And all I did was my confidence went through the roof. So when I hear people talk about helicopter dads, I'm like, I don't know, dog, but my pops did that for me. It put me into a different stratosphere on how I approached the work, how I listened to him. Then I felt like I was in the coop with him. And that's right before he became the coach at Gateway. And everything kind of went on from there. So again, that empowered advocate, I would say he probably fell into that phrase before. That's why I think
you need somebody to advocate for you, right? Because you're a kid and you're not on the same level as an adult, right? You don't have the same energy. You don't have the same vocabulary. You don't have the same perspective. So children, whether you're an athlete or not, you need someone to advocate on your behalf. Absolutely.
And I think advocating and empowering the athlete, like advocating while empowering the athlete is such a nuanced piece because a lot of people within the ecosystem think they're empowering the athlete and they're really just making them weak or just making them susceptible to being taken advantage of.
Don't give them a crutch. That's not empowering.
Give them a crutch. Right? There it is.
Don't give them a crutch. That's not empowering. Don't give them a crutch.
Empowered. Yeah. You know what I mean? Then that goes into the third archetype positive one where we talk about the dream supporter with boundaries, right? It's like that. It's the adverse of the living through them parent. Instead of pushing their own agenda, remembers their journey, but centers the athlete's passion, right? Provides motivation, discipline, structure, not pressure, share stories and teach, not to guilt or infiltrate, like their motivation. And a lot of times this is like the parents that they have a saying, the dream supporter, like trainers over tutors. I'll have that with a lot of parents that I deal with, and they might play tennis, golf, or skill-based sports. And you talk about using sports to get into Ivy League schools or high academic institutions. And they're supporting a dream and they're like putting boundaries and a roadmap in it and then like kind of help support that. So like that dream supporter with boundaries, that's the adverse of the living through them parent. So like there's so many nuanced flips of the coin that you can be doing certain things right and one thing wrong that can end it all. So that's why it's, I think, important because your kids going through this commodification process, and I don't want to take that lightly where they're turning into a product. The last thing they need is like to lose their parent or lose their support.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really important gem, right? Because there's not much that you do have out in this world, but the relationship with your parents, man, you only get one set. And so to have any sort of fracture with that trust, that respect, that relationship, that connection, man. And you just spoke about it, like when it's a positive interaction or when a parent is speaking life into you, that could change your whole perspective. And you remember that, and that was almost 25 years ago. You know what I mean?
He wasn't even speaking to me.
It lasted a lifetime, and he wasn't even speaking to you.
He wasn't even speaking to me.
That's the power and the influence and the impact that parents have on their kids, man. And that's honestly something that I'm actively living through right now. Like I would call my daughters, they have ability, but their perspective and their disposition in sports is a lot different than mine when I was growing up. Like and very much so like you, my dad was always on me, helicopter parent, yelling. Like we used to get in spats during the game when I was in like midget league. It was a whole thing. But he was always trying to push me because he saw something that was inside of me. And I through those, I don't know if he was somewhat living through me. I don't know. That's kind of what it felt like at the time. But also he was very much so and living through me in the most positive form I think he possibly could. Like it wasn't anything about like, oh, you're going to be an NFL star or anything like that. He was really just trying to make me into and instilling like principles in me to just be a good man.
I'm about to say, is you're
and
preparing.
learning
As a
those values
parent,
through sport. You know what I mean? And learning
yeah,
those
because I'm gonna
values through
say, as a
sport.
parent, like that whole living through them, like shouldn't a parent be trying to live through you when you're
Yeah.
first born? Like, what are you here for?
I mean,
You're an
that's all I
extension
got.
of them.
All I can do is not and live through you is interesting because like especially as a parent, like you can only parent based off of your lived experiences. And so in many ways, shapes and forms, I'm speaking life into you through my life and my life experiences because that's all I know.
Because they're trying to
That's
prepare
all
you.
I know at the
Like
end of the
that's
day. Yeah.
and so like to have grace for that, and like yeah, even that thing of living through them, it's like yeah, but in order to live through them, like you give them the steps that you did not get. So it's having the awareness that if you're not equipped to do that, though, that you find someone that can. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And maybe not in
Yeah.
Asia, and that's what gets tricky about the business. That there's a lot of people that come in that look like help that you don't understand the step 2, 3 in the whole business of where this kind of isolates your kid 4 years down the line or 2 years down
Yeah.
the line, depending on when this happens. Because when the first thing you get to the NFL Rookie Symposium, I don't think people realize it, but the first message they get to you is pretty much tell your parents no. like, yo, this is your money. Like, that's the first thing they tell you when you get to the league.
Yeah.
Yo, this is your money. Regardless of how much your parents invested in you, what everybody else did, this is about you. And then you got
Yeah.
the agent saying, like, yo, tell your parents no, tell her this no. And then
But we get
I don't know if you
programmed,
have
and the first thing you do is like buy your mom a house. Like, okay, like why is that a part of the playbook? You know what I'm saying?
no 100%. And it's like, why is it part of the playbook to say not to do that when we're realizing in order for anybody to get to that end of the funnel, you have to have a supportive team, whether it's a parent, whether it's a coach, whether it's an advisor. Like no one's getting there by themselves. That's the myth that I want to dispel amongst all athletes. Like cats ain't just falling out of the sky. Yes, there's some physically gifted people, but for everybody to get to the end of the funnel, there are advocates, advisors, coaches that have helped along the way. And the ones that have, think make it sustainably and make it out are the ones where those people are their family assets. That's where I got it from, because it's like, yo, the family assets, they don't leave. Like it's a barrier and it's a protection to the rest of the business, but you also need to attack the business with, with people that understand what's going on. So it's an interesting dynamic because it goes into the Jaden Daniels situation, right? Is she doing too much, or she probably always been doing too much and has been validated for doing
Yeah.
too much?
Or the question is she even doing too much?
That's what I'm saying. Is she doing too much, right? Because
Yeah.
like she
Is
actually
she doing
went,
too much?
because she's an actual certified agent. Like so she went and learned a little bit of the business. So she got mad. She did something. But then at the same time, I would say, I mean, I wouldn't wish a parent to kind of deal with their kid within the industry or the business when you have
Yeah.
to see them as a fully commodified product,
It's tough.
because at that point
Yeah.
you're
You just have
compromised
to
in
build a
doing your job.
relationship and trust in I think a skill set to evaluate who has your child's best interest at heart, whatever they bring to the table. And that particularly became real to me when I was like, okay, like I'm dad first, right? And my parents, excuse me, my children, they have a hard time being coached by me. And sometimes as children, you just need to hear the message from a vehicle, right? Particularly a coach, a teacher. It could be somebody different, right? But sometimes very much so, like there's that influence and that impact that comes directly from a parent. Sometimes it can be overbearing and a little too much. And sometimes you just need to hear it from a different voice in order for it to click. And that's something that I know I've experienced not only with my relationship with my father. Like, he could say one thing and another person could tell me the exact same thing, but I receive it better because maybe I just didn't have a good day, or like he was yelling at me, whatever it may be. But sometimes you need to have that voice, that outside influence, that again is a trusted resource and has your best interests at heart. But I think it really does make a difference, particularly as you go up the ladder and when you start to deal with folks who have been working and have built like a career and experience around doing some of these things.
Right.
That's for me, that's where I look at it and say, like, all right, it's one thing to want to protect your child, to be there for your child, to service your child, etc. But it always comes down to execution, in executing, and having the experience in execution. And so, like, and it's not even a fine line. It's a perspective, right? Like, do you want to learn a job on the go, right? And your child is your first client as an agent, or do you, I think, just find yourself in a position, particularly if you are learning something new for the first time, you might be swimming and that information might be a lot for you to
Right.
kind of handle. And there may be some missteps along the way. There's no right answer, but just from my perspective, I look at it and I say, like, man, I would always just want the best and most qualified folks that I trust and that I believe in to serve and support my child. And sometimes, and this is an ego thing, sometimes that ain't me. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Sometimes that ain't me. Yes, I will always have my child's best interests at heart. But at the end of the day, I can't do everything for my child.
Correct. I mean, that's so critical. I mean, I'm working. I'm trying to figure out which archetype I am as a sports dad.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to say, which one are you?
I'm thinking. I think I was on the negative side to begin when she first started playing tennis. I think I was the coach from the. No, I was the investor parent, the bad one, where we were like, this is like tennis. We're going here. Like, hey man,
that's cash, bro. Tennis ain't
cash.
cheap.
We out here. You wasting time. You doing this.
Yeah,
And then I started to
tennis
like
ain't cheap.
back off. Like the intention, I started having more fun, like probably a year or two in, and then she started really liking the competition, and then I got her with more serious coaching, and then I backed off and was able to just give tidbits, be dad, but still, I'm still here to prepare, right? Like, so if I'm there, like I'm talking about how she's moving, technical stuff, not like how she's actually hitting a racket, but like preparation, things that don't take any talent, because, and I'm a stickler about that, but like, I'm gonna let Rashid, shout out to Rashid, tennis here in Pittsburgh in Monroeville, but I let Rashid and his dad, Yusuf, they take the reins and go with it. But that came with like 2 to 3 years of having different coaches and trying out like what's the right fit and understanding, I'm looking for an open skill set, the closed skill set, and like a philosophy that I had a lot of backing. And even me, with my backing in sports, I went and found Rashid as another tennis expert. You know what I mean? Who helps and all this stuff. So it's I would say probably I'm closer to the investor parent.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's no wrong or right answer. It's just like the more you know, the more you grow. You know what I'm saying? And again, I was very much so, and I think I do fall in that investor parent category. And my oldest plays tennis and my youngest plays volleyball. And my oldest is definitely starting to find her footing as it relates to just like that mental disposition, that fortitude, that sense of urgency around like practice and commitment and all these other types of things. She's starting to track that, but my youngest is another story, and we're working on that. But what I did find, which was interesting, and you just mentioned it, have fun. Like, especially, I mean, they're kids. Like, my youngest is 10 years old. At the end of the day, she's 10. You know what I'm saying? And like, she wants to have fun. She wants to do things that are fun, that make her laugh and make her smile. And I had this realization maybe about 2 weeks ago where I was like, man, I just need to play with her more. Like, just go outside. Let's play catch. You know what I'm saying? A form of play. So it doesn't feel like work. It feels like play. And even in playing, we could still develop some skills. We could still develop some conditioning. We could still develop some stand, but we're out here playing, right? We could develop coordination, but it's again about like the method of delivery. Like, I was trying to come down like, boom, I was a world-class athlete at one point in time. Let's do this, and this. She's 10, bro. She's 10. You know what I'm saying? She wants
She
to just
used to
go
leave the
outside and play. She's not ready for all that you trying to deliver to her. And I had to check myself in that moment and really say, like, look, like, let's just go outside and play catch. And it
that's
worked.
real.
It worked.
That's real. That's a great way. I mean, even in tennis, yeah, 'cause I used to get on her hard. It was like, hey, like put more effort into it and things of that nature. And then once I realized, for even me, like I felt more comfortable and have fun as a player. Again, coaches, kids stuff. When I knew exactly the technicals of it, like that gave me my
Mm-hmm.
confidence. I'm like, well, maybe you don't have the technicals right. So that's again finding the right coach, and when you get those technicals, then you can have fun because she's a little bit of a perfectionist to an extent. Like she likes to do things right. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yes, I can check in even your kid's temperature. I mean, she started playing tennis. She was playing soccer early, and I remember we went out training, and I was like trying to get her toughened up because she was playing with boys. I played some hard defense on her, trying to check her competitive nature. And I started talking stuff. I was like, "You ain't gonna do that to the dude out there. You ain't do that." And she like bit me. I was like, "Yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
Got a
Yeah.
live wire, so I can at
Yes.
least build."
Yes. Yep. Yeah. All I'm looking for is that little flash,
Just
that
a little
little
flash.
spark that just show me something.
Show
And
me
as long
something.
as
Show
I
me
see
you
something, hey, we could take the next step, because that's all
can
you
take
can
the
really
next.
ever take is one step at a time,
That's
and get
it.
that spark, man. Well, this was
Nah, that's
dope, bro.
really.
Like, man, I think it's really important for parents to know that, one, you know, and us both being parents, sometimes you feel like it's never enough, it's never going to end, I'm doing a terrible job, or you feel like I'm not doing enough, etc. But just want to send a shout out to all the parents out there, man. Like, just keep doing the work one day at a time, because it takes time, right? Like, building a body of work, getting to that destination, whether it be college, whether it be pros, it takes time and it takes commitment. And how you show up for your children, as Justin mentioned, as I mentioned, those experiences, those lessons, those values, and really the life that's poured in to your children, from a words perspective, they last a lifetime. Like, and as I sit here as 40 years old, I still remember everything that my father taught me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? But it all kind of shaped and molded me to be right where I am, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, man. So any final or parting words for all the parents out there, regardless of what type of parent you are, man? You got any final words for these parents that are listening to us?
I do. The business is nasty and unforgiving. The
Mm,
thing the players and athletes need the most are family assets, and that's what you guys can serve as if you're going through and understanding the ways that you can actually provide the help. Whether it's seeking out the right knowledge, or groups like us at LIG Sports Group, got a recruiting masterclass, so that you guys have the information, and so you're not putting your kid in a position of and in harm's way, thinking that you're doing something right. And it's just trying to clarify all these things because the business is set up to, commoditize your kid and turn them into a product and not be a human. The last thing they need is for you to treat them as a product as well. So as
yep,
you guys go through this, man, make sure you
that's a
guys
good
check out
point.
LIG Sports Group. I'm Justin King, Blue Chip Academy. Sign up, get all this good information, free game, and yeah, lock in, man. This is a trying time in athlete development, and it goes beyond just the sport. We're talking about using sports as a catalyst, a career you can bank on, and you guys are the leaders until they turn 18, and even then, they still need your support. Like I said,
It never
it's a
ends. It
long
never
path.
ends. Well, cool, man. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Blue Chip Academy. Hope y'all be well. We'll check y'all out soon. Peace.
Peace.